What is up everybody? Welcome back to the Crew 2, and in this video I'm going to take a look at the Ford Crown Victoria Limousine, which is actually going to be in the drift category, which don't worry, you're not going to be alone if you find this to be kind of odd, but to be honest I actually say it's kind of interesting to drive and it's kind of wonky at the same time, and it's also going to be the only limousine drift vehicle in the Crew 2, which I'm sure a lot of people are most likely going to find this to be kind of interesting because we actually have normal drift vehicles like the 370Z and or something like the Lancer and or the R34 once again. But now guys, we're going to have a limousine as a drift car in the Crew 2. And if you were wondering if this car is going to be weird in any way, do not worry because it's definitely going to be very wonky to actually drift. But what I find kind of interesting about this car is the fact that it's going to be really stable. Obviously the car is going to be insanely long because, it's a limousine, but I did notice having the car being longer like that basically makes it feel like you're drifting a small train. And at first I was honestly wondering how this car was going to do because I was like, you know what, it's probably going to be really hard to drift or it's probably going to be really annoying. And well guys, it actually turns out this limo is going to be insanely stable around corners, and that's definitely going to come down to the size of this car because again, you're basically going to be drifting around in a small bus, which would be really funny to see. I feel like a drifting bus would be pretty awesome, but that's a different vehicle type. I would say if they added a drifting bus to the Crew 2, a lot of players would honestly be scratching their heads, but overall, guys, I would say the Crown Victoria Limousine drift car was definitely going to be something you would most likely not want to see and or didn't think you would actually see something like this added into the drift category. But don't worry, guys, maybe we're going to see a monster truck in the future. My goodness, that would be absolutely insane, but if you guys might have been wondering though, is the limousine going to be a lot different than the regular drift cars? And can you actually use this vehicle in like summits and or just drifting events in general? And to be honest, I would say the biggest flaw with this car is probably going to be the fact that it's going to be harder to actually drift. Now the main reason why I say that is if you guys are trying to initiate a drift and or like spin the car to a different direction to keep the multiplier going, and this is going to make the limo kind of on the annoying side because if you guys are trying to switch directions and or trying to keep the multiplier actually on, I did notice it's going to be a bit of a challenge. Now one thing I did notice about this though guys is the fact that if you are using manual, I was noticing around many corners second to third gear is going to be the best option. And depending on the track you guys might be on if you are running third gear, I notice this car can fly around most corners in third gear and actually keep a drift going the entire time. If you guys do have to basically switch the car back to a different direction though, I was finding this to be a lot easier to actually drop down one gear, and then I was able to actually switch the car around and keep my multiplier going. That is by far going to be the biggest challenge when drifting the limo. And do keep in mind guys, with the size of this car as well, I would say a lot of the drifting events are basically going to be impossible with this car. I would honestly not even recommend doing some of them with the limo because I don't think it's worth the frustration. Sure, you could do like the Dominion Forsberg event or like the one in Miami with this car if you would like to. I would honestly say a lot of people are most likely not going to be touching this vehicle after this update and or like after this car was added in this past summit week though. I really don't think a lot of people are going to be running this car mainly because you actually can't, and it's more of likely going to be a car you'd mess around with and or see something you would never actually want to see in a racetrack, like a big pink limo drifting around a corner with blue flames coming out of the front. And saying that out loud makes this even more hilarious, but overall guys, I actually wouldn't say the limo's going to be a bad drifting car. It's more of likely going to be kind of annoying to get used to this thing and actually keep that multiplier going with how big this car is with switching it back and forth. Luckily, when drifting in corners though, I did find the limo to be insanely stable, so at least it is going to have that going for it, plus it's also pretty dang fast as well. I actually never really went out of third gear when drifting this car, which does make it really fun. And also seeing how much power the limousine actually had when drifting was honestly pretty impressive. If you guys do want to mess around with a pretty odd car in summits and or try to do some drifting events, this is definitely going to be the car to use, but I do want to know what you guys think about this thing being in the drift category, and here are the settings I'm currently running on this vehicle, which I actually left basically completely stock.